Jeremiah 29:11, a verse that 13 years ago I didn't realize was going to change the entire trajectory of my entire life. I didn't realize the true impact that it was going to have on me as a person and how true this verse actually became in my life. And if you're not a spiritual or religious person, I encourage you to watch this video with open ears and an open heart, because for a decade, I was basically a full-blown atheist. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in spirituality. I didn't believe in any of that. And since coming back to my faith, I can say that my life has gotten better in every single aspect. And if you're not familiar with the verse Jeremiah 29:11, I want to read it to you really quick. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a hope and a future. And when I first heard that verse, I think it was because Bryce Harper, who's obviously an MLB superstar, would sign his name with a Bible verse, and Jeremiah 29:11 was one of the verses that he signed with. And I was in high school living in Northern Virginia at the time, so I was highly influenced by Bryce Harper. And so I started looking into that, and I really liked that verse. I really liked the meaning behind it, and it felt very comforting knowing that God, the Lord, had a plan for me. But my faith was not very strong. I did not have strong or even, honestly, real faith in any way. But I liked this verse so much that my mom even put the verse on the side of a pair of sunglasses that I had in high school. And I wore them for a long time, and I claimed to be religious. And throughout high school, I was, Christian. And then I went to the university in Notre Dame my freshman year, and I was Christian. But throughout this entire spiritual journey, there was a period of time where I rejected God, where I rejected spirituality, where I rejected the idea that somebody actually did have a plan for me. And those were the darkest years of my life. And in this video, I'm going to tell you guys a story about how I was able to rekindle my relationship with God. Because I know for somebody out there, this is going to change their entire life the same way that this book right here changed mine. So, when I was 16 years old, I obviously was a big fan of this verse, Jeremiah 29:11, and I really liked the idea of having somebody look out for me, like I said earlier. And then I went to the university in Notre Dame my freshman year, and I was very much living for the flesh. I was living for status. I was living for the approval of others. I was always looking over my shoulder, wondering if the people around me thought that I was cool, thought that I was funny, thought that I was good looking, thought that I was good at baseball, whatever it was. And that freshman year of college really smacked me in the face, despite the fact that, yes, I wore a cross and, I said that I was religious. I was not doing things in alignment with how Christ would want me to live my life. And I struggled super hard my freshman year. I hit a $175 at the University of Notre Dame after winning the starting job as a freshman, hitting leadoff on opening day. And then at the end of the year, I was basically the last person on the roster. I was a terrible teammate. I was super selfish. Looking back on the person that I was, I'm not proud of the person that I was. And I used to be very ashamed of who I was back then. And I've since accepted that about myself through the help of God, but we'll get into that. So that freshman year, after leaving Notre Dame, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about God, just because I saw other people claiming to be religious who were not living the way God did, and I didn't really quite understand what it meant to be a man of God or what it even meant to be a believer. And so I went to a junior college the next year, and it was in Houston, Texas, where in Texas, obviously, people are super religious, so I was very exposed to it, but that was when I really started to get away from God. Because for whatever reason, I felt as if I was too logical to believe in God. I started smoking a bunch of weed at the time, and I was heavily influenced by the people that I was surrounded. And in junior college sports, a lot of people were smoking weed all the time because, so I thought we weren't going to get drug tested. I ended up failing a drug test when I was there for weed. I thought we weren't going to get drug tested. And, I started listening to the enemy. I started trying to rely on my own understanding and make sense of everything in my life. I felt like I had such little lack of control in my life that I wanted to control everything. I felt so out of control. And what I learned was that I was actually just out of control of myself. I didn't know how to control my thoughts. I didn't know how to control my emotions. And because I felt this lack of control internally, I tried to control everything externally, which is kind of ironic, right? And so I really started to fade away from my spirituality then. And despite that, I was able to get an offer to play at the University of South Carolina on no scholarship, actually. But I took a bet on myself, and the reason why I did that was strictly out of ego. I wanted to show everybody at South Carolina and that had been following along that I was actually worth something. That's why I went to South Carolina on no scholarship. So that way I could show everybody else just for that one moment, so I could post it on my Instagram and say, blessed to be committed to the University of South Carolina. And I'm admitting this publicly because I've since accepted this about myself through the help of God. But when I look back at that, how ego-driven was that action? How ego-driven was that action? And that was who I was. I was driven by my ego. I was trying to get with women so that way I could tell my friends that I got with this girl or got with that girl or that girl liked me. I was smoking weed so that way people could see that I couldn't be controlled, and I was edgy, and I was getting drunk all the time so that way I could numb myself from the pain that I was dealing with internally, a God-shaped hole in my heart, really. And I can't even believe, well, I can believe that I'm saying this, but if you would have asked Nick when he was 21 years old, if he'd be making this video right now talking about how he was religious or spiritual or anything like that, he would tell you that you were crazy. Because my good friend, actually, one time, his name is Joel, he was a very religious person. And somebody asked, we were together, and somebody asked if I was religious. And his response for me was that I thought I was too smart for God. Like, think about how egotistical I was. And that just obviously stemmed from my severe insecurity with myself. And I was actually just writing about this other night. What does it mean to be insecure? And security is safety. So if you're insecure with yourself, you feel unsafe with yourself. And why do you feel unsafe with yourself? Well, when you feel secure, when you feel safe, in my opinion, it's because you have accepted. You have accepted whatever could potentially happen, or whatever it is. And so insecurity is lack of acceptance of yourself. You are afraid, or you don't feel safe with yourself. You don't feel secure with yourself because you do not accept yourself. And so as a result of that, because I was so insecure and I had a God-shaped hole in my heart, I was living for the flesh. I was living for my ego. And so I go to the University of South Carolina, and the exact same thing that happened at Notre Dame happened at South Carolina, where I played well in practice, I won the starting job. Even at South Carolina, I opened up the weekend red hot. At University of Notre Dame, I went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts and panicked. But then at University of South Carolina, I had a bad midweek. It was our first midweek, maybe 4 games into the season. And I previously used to blame my coach for pulling me aside in the on deck circle and saying, hey, you're back to doing your old BS again. If you ever want to hit at this level, you got to cut that out. I blamed him because I was so insecure. My ego was so fragile that I couldn't take that on myself. So I blamed him. I put it externally, and I went 0 for 38 after that. I went 0 for 38 after that. And every single day I was just panicking and panicking and panicking. What's going to happen? What's going to happen if I get cut? What's going to happen if 1, 2, 3? And I basically manifested that reality. I got cut at the end of the year. And I was full-blown atheist at this point. I would make fun of people that were religious. I remember we were on the road one time, and one of my teammates, his name is Andrew. Andrew, you're probably not watching this, but if you are, dude, shout out to Andrew. He put the Bible on my bed, and I thought it was hilarious, and I realized it was because he was saying that I needed Jesus. Joke's on me, right? So anyway, I get cut from the University of South Carolina. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I, by the grace of God, get an opportunity to go play baseball at Southern Illinois University. And I had an amazing experience there, but the entire time I was living for my ego. I was living for the flesh. I was same type of pattern. I was getting drunk all the time. I was smoking weed, even in season, like doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, chasing women, chasing status. And when I was there, I met a friend whose name is Gray. And Gray now runs a very successful Christian clothing brand. And, he was kind of a pretty boy. And if you see him, he's like one of the best looking men on planet Earth, I'm convinced. Every single woman at that school wanted him because he was just, he looked like a model, and he technically is modeling now for his own brand. So shout out to Gray. But he would cut my hair, and he would have these conversations with me about God, and he would ask me questions. And, I really didn't, looking back, I didn't have any answers for him as to why I didn't believe in a higher power. And I wouldn't hear what he was saying. I wouldn't hear what he was saying. I was so insecure and so afraid of judgment that I couldn't hear anything he was saying. And that is the biggest reason why I rejected God for the longest time, is because I knew deep down that I wasn't perfect. And because I wasn't perfect, I felt insufficient. And because I felt insufficient, I felt like, well, who could actually love me regardless? Who could actually love me based on everything that I've done in my life and all these sins that I've committed? There's no way God would actually love me. There's no way God is actually real. He wouldn't have let me do all these things. But turns out we have free will, right? So Gray would always just kind of poke holes in my argument. He would never push. He would never push. And I am so incredibly grateful for him never pushing and never trying to get me to, convert on the spot. And he just planted the seed. He just planted the seed. And fast forward, the year ends. I move out to Scottsdale. I'm panicking, not sure what I'm going to do with my life. I get a job in mortgages. I've told this story before. And I just feel empty all the time. And I feel like I'm running from something. I feel like I'm constantly running from something and in fear. And so I quit my 9-to-5 job and I launched this, online coaching business, and it gives me a new sense of purpose. But I got hooked on Adderall when I was doing it. And I was also smoking weed to go to bed at night. And I was still chasing women. Like, I was numbing myself so that way I didn't have to deal with these thoughts. And what's so interesting is you can become incredibly successful to the world with these vices, living for the world, numbing your thoughts, never dealing with your emotions, you can become incredibly wealthy while just shoving and suppressing these thoughts and these emotions and never truly dealing with them. It's incredible. And that's what was happening with my online coaching business is, we made over $250,000 in 10 months. And me and my partner were both very much emotionally wounded, and we were using the business as a way to escape from our own insecurities and the things that we had never dealt with ourselves. And so that business goes up in flames. I obviously have another video on this channel talking about what happened. And I start this business, and it gives me like a newfound sense of purpose. And so at first I was just trying to make a little bit of money, and it was like 4,500 month one, 9,800 month two, 19.8 month three, 28.9 month four, 50 month five, like boom, 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 boom. It was unbelievable. And in 13 months in business, I'd hit a $94,000 cash collected month was my highest month. And I probably did like 750K at like pretty high profit margins. Like I made some pretty good money as 26-year-old. Just kind of out of nowhere. I ended up getting this place. I bought a Rolex. Now I got these like Cartier sunglasses, and I was like going out to nice dinners, and I was living for the world. I was trying to flex and show everybody that I was successful because deep down, I felt insufficient. I felt like I wasn't enough. I felt like nobody would love me unless I was better than I was right now. And at the end of the day, what even is better? What even is sufficient? It's a standard that I set in my mind to perpetuate the belief that I wasn't good enough. So every time I got close to being good enough, I would move the goalpost. And that kept me running on a hamster wheel forever. And I was like, when I do $100,000 in a month, I was so close. When I do $100,000 in a month, then everything's gonna be good. And so I needed to hit $100,000 a month so bad that I pedestalized it. And I made hitting $100,000 a month. I made money my God. I made status my God. I made validation my God. And as a result of that, I just chased this thing, and I made a bunch of terrible decisions because I just needed to hit this $100,000 month so bad. I changed my business model. I changed my offer. I changed our marketing mechanism. I changed so many different things emotionally to try and scratch this itch of hitting $100,000 a month. That once I did it, then I would be successful. Once I did it, then I would be enough. Then the Instagram models would come out, and I'd be able to drive a Lamborghini and drive off into a sunset, and I would be the man forever. It's obviously not what happened. And I struggled for the next few months, but eventually kind of picked it back up and hit my first $100,000 month. And I looked around and I was like, nothing changed. Nothing happened. And so I was like, oh, well, we got to do 250. So the next month, I tried to scale super hard. I tried to scale our ads super hard. They broke. And I panicked because I didn't believe that everything was going to work out for me, right? I didn't believe in Jeremiah 29:11 that God has a plan for me. So I panicked trying to control everything, cut my entire team, and then the next month ended up doing over $100,000 a month in July of 2025. Like the best month I had ever done in business up to that point. And I felt so empty. And I'm getting uncomfortable right now thinking about it and thinking about the emotional state that I was in a year ago, because I've come so far and I was so lost, and I was so empty. I was so empty. And I was drinking all the time. I was smoking. I'd come off Adderall. I had like a pretty bad Adderall problem earlier on in that year, which maybe I'll make a video one day talking about how bad my Adderall problem actually was. And, you know, it really just all stems back to this. I had a God-shaped hole in my heart. And so for the next few months, I didn't really try. I sat around all day, didn't really do much. I found myself laying in bed a lot, and my business really slowed down. Like, I'm talking, we were only signing a few new clients a month, and we were just living off of payment plans and recurring. And we hosted an event in San Diego, and, you know, nobody really knew what I was going through at the time. It seemed like, you know, I was fine and everything was good because I've learned to suppress my emotions and be a really good actor and just pretend like everything's okay. And so August was meh, September was meh, and I'm just feeling like disconnected from the world, and I'm drinking all the time, and I'm literally going to these bars here in Old Town, and I'm getting drunk by myself, just sitting there, not talking to anybody. I have headphones in the whole time. I'm just drinking. And I started to wonder, like, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time I give this God thing a try. Because I had been trying so hard to make all this money and be the man. And no matter what I did, it didn't matter. Because I hit $100,000 a month. I made all this profit. I had all this money. And yet here I am looking in the mirror, hating what I see. And so in October, I was meant to go to my team member's wedding. His name's Matt. Shout out Matt if you're watching this. Probably not. But I was going to go to Matt's wedding, and then the following weekend after that, I was going to my sister's fiance's bachelor party, who we had had a rocky relationship up until this point. We actually got into it at Christmas dinner the year before. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that in this video. But I was like, all right, I'm going to go on this trip, and when I come back, we're going to figure out what we're going to do. And so my mom invites me actually at the tail end of the trip to come out to Mexico, because the school that my dad works at was celebrating 25 years in the Yucatan. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'll go. Why not? Like, I'm traveling all over the place. I got money, whatever. Like, let's have a little bit of fun. I have the freedom. So I go to, and I'm like kind of starting to find some spirituality. And I go to Matt's wedding, and I'll never forget going to his wedding and feeling so guilty that I wasn't trying. Because this guy had put so much faith into me and the vision that I had painted for him. And we've been through a ton together. And he's kind of seen my whole character arc right in front of his eyes. And I just saw the life that he lived, and I felt so incredibly selfish. And I was ashamed of myself for not wanting to provide him with the life that he deserved. You know, like, and that was kind of when it first clicked. I was like, well, maybe if I'm not going to be happy when I'm doing all this, at least I can make other people happy. And so I was like, okay, it gave me a ton of motivation to like work and get after it. And Matt is very much a man of faith, and he's been, you know, just offering it there for me if I needed it. And, you know, then I went to my sister's fiance's bachelor party, and I actually got to spend some really quality time with him. And I think it was really good for our relationship because I was finally starting to accept myself and like calm down a little bit rather than hate everything that wasn't me or that didn't see things directly eye to eye with me. And so I have a little bit of this momentum, and now it's time for me to go to Mexico. And when I was in Mexico, I ended up getting on a call with my old friend Gray. And I kind of just laid it all out for him. I was like, hey, dude, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm kind of searching right now. And then I just laid out all my objections about, hey, this is like my friction towards believing, and this is like, this doesn't make sense to me. And he just walked me through everything, and he encouraged me to start reading scripture, and I told him that I wanted to get sober, and I'd been trying to get sober for the longest time, and I was frustrated with myself because I couldn't, and I was still chasing these women, and I didn't know why, and I was in such a terrible spot. And he just walked me through it. And it made me feel like everything was going to be okay. So, the night before I was supposed to fly out, I ended up hanging out with some of the students that were in the program, or former students that were in the program that my dad works at a school. And so I came back, I was like pretty drunk that night, I'm not gonna lie. And my phone died, I didn't plug it in, so I wake up and I'm like, uh-oh. So I ended up missing my flight, not by a ton, but I ended up missing my flight. I gotta book another one. And so I get on this flight later that day, and we're flying to Mexico City. We were in Merida, and we're flying to Mexico City, and I'm sitting there journaling about God and trying to, find my spirituality and make this connection to God. And all of a sudden, there's like crazy turbulence. And I've flown hundreds of times in my life. I've flown across, oceans. I've flown so many times. I fly all the time. But this turbulence felt different. And I don't know if it was the turbulence itself or it was just the emotional state I was in. But I was convinced I was going to die. I was convinced that that plane was going to go down and that my life was over. And I started panicking, like big time. I'm basically getting a full-blown anxiety attack on this plane because I think I'm about to die. And then something in my mind, something in my heart just told me, like, what can you do about it? I was like, nothing. It was like, so then why should you worry? And it just felt like God was communicating to me, telling me that I was going to be okay. And in that moment, I was overwhelmed with a sense of peace. Like a blanket just overtook my body. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I was going to be okay. I felt like I could finally relax. Amidst this turbulence, the plane is literally shaking. And I'm just sitting there like, it's gonna be okay. In like this unreal sense of bliss. And if you've ever felt something like that, you know what I'm talking about. And it was in that moment that I was like, yeah, I don't think God's real, I know. It was in that moment. And since that moment, my life has improved dramatically in so many different areas of my life. And I'm still nowhere close to perfect, and I'm still looking for my answers, but I read scripture daily, I pray daily, and I see God working in every single aspect of my life. And I knew the verse Jeremiah 29:11 was going to have, or was very impactful on me when I first read it. Some things happen in life where they just hit you differently, and you know that that's going to have a major role or a major impact. Like maybe you've met somebody before where you just know this person is going to be very special in my life. That's what it felt like with this verse. And I want to read the next couple lines, because when I heard the verse, I just liked the feeling of safety. But when I read this next part to you, I think things will make a lot more sense as to why that verse means so much to me. Jeremiah 29:12 through 14. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and all the places where I have driven you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile. And when I read that, I knew Jeremiah 29:11 was an impactful verse in my life when I first heard it. But I didn't realize that the next few verses were going to be my life. That when I seek God with all my heart, that's when I'll find him, and I'll pray to him, and that's when he'll come to me. And then he'll bring me back to the place where he sent me from. And for basically a decade, I was anti-God. And I felt as if I was in exile. And since seeking him and really trying to develop a relationship with him, my life has drastically changed. And the more I trust God and stop trying to control everything myself and just let him do it, the better my life gets. I've been a control freak my entire life, trying to control this and trying to control that, just in hopes that I can protect myself, just in hopes that I can be safe. But this thing right here has changed my life. So, I had a lot of friction to making this video, but I had to make it because I know even if there's only one person that watches this all the way through and this makes a lasting impact on their life, it would have been worth it to be as vulnerable as I've been in this video. And I will continue to be in all of my content because I am far from perfect, and with the help of God, I've accepted that about myself, and I've since rid myself of these vices. I've been sober this entire year, and I don't do nicotine, and I don't smoke weed, and I don't drink, and I don't chase women. I've been completely celibate as a result of this. I was never able to do it on my own. And I was afraid to ask for help my entire life. I felt like I needed to do it on my own, but I didn't. I had God the entire time. All I had to do was seek him with all my heart and pray to him. So, that's my story. That is my story. Hopefully this helps somebody out there. Catch you in the next one.